We stand among the best art fairs in the country, and we do that because of our credibility and the excellence that we have in the artists that participate. But as I said, it's become a more competitive world. So we took a survey of our fairgoers, and we discovered what they enjoy, what they need to make this a better event for them, to keep them coming, and in fact to bring more fairgoers, increase our reach, and bring more fairgoers to the event. One of the things that they told us that was very important to them was to know where they were as they were attending the fair. And what we discovered is that their phrase is, the fair is too big, and I don't know where I am. They don't know how to get around. And we understand that the fair isn't too big, because as I've often said, the fair is as big or as little as you want it to be. It's your personal experience. But what we needed to do was help the fairgoer understand where they were, help them understand how they can navigate the fair so that they can enjoy the event to its fullest and meet their expectations. One of the things that we started doing in answer to this request was to create the Art Trolley. This is a trolley supported by all 4 of the fairs, and it navigates the entire circumference of the event. It stops in several locations. In fact, its shuttle stops. It matches the shuttle stops and the parking structures where we have the influx of the greatest number of fair goers, so that they are able to enter the fair in an area that they're familiar with and navigate the fair comfortably, and particularly in air-conditioned comfort, as we know it can be warm during our fair. This costs the event about $25,000 a year. And so we are looking for help in doing this. We've been very lucky that the CDB has come through with a grant of $10,000, and we're seeking an additional $10,000 grant from the DDA. We will certainly recognize your support in a variety of different ways, including signage on the trolley. And if you've seen the trolley, you know that it circles the event, it has large signs on the side, and it has a wonderful trolley bell. So it brings out loud and clear drawing attention throughout the event. It adds to the festival quality of the event. We know that this is very important. We know that we need to maintain our credibility and our reputation for excellence in order to retain our standing in the art fair community and be able to continue to draw the best artists to this event, which in turn brings a very large audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Alice Lieberson. You approach the podium on this new bar. 4 minutes.
I am Alice Lieberson, and I am a resident of Burns Park. I also have a little business on 4th. And I've never come to a meeting, and I just started really reading about Ann Arbor politics this summer. Shame on me, I've been here 12 years. So it was just reading the article I wanted to comment on. And this has to do with the proposal or whatever's going on with Southview. Because I feel that's I know we should hear about the whole town, but, and there was a comment in there that, because it took me by surprise, that my take on the whole thing, I wasn't looking else, but that people want to make a high-density, regular downtown, like, grown-up downtown down there. And I really don't understand this mindset at all. And since I know in the article it said you wanted to be sure you listen, and again, I know in my neighborhood, nobody knows about this, it's under the radar, and I'm concerned it's going to be like some other projects that all of a sudden it's a fait accompli, and they were not well thought out, it seems to me. So, again, just random notes. Do we really need buildings more than 150 feet high? I guess that's the current zoning, or was. What's wrong with 1- and 2-story buildings? This is the campus downtown. Whatever you do, I don't think you're going to bring grown-ups. I mean, it's just not done that way. I don't believe. You say, well, if we build high-density, fancy buildings, maybe, non-students will move in. Well, I think, everybody wanted a high-density building downtown, and now they're really unhappy that students are moving in. You can't control who's going to live where, and I don't particularly think you should try. But I really feel there's a great opportunity to have, if you want people to go down there, not just students, and businesses to thrive, to me, a great thing to be would be to have a pedestrian, to have a no-car zone. There's no car zones in Ann Arbor. Most charming, small cities, big towns, have no car zones. That's what brings people. And so you can sit outside a restaurant and not inhale car fumes and not have traffic going by, and people are moving slowly so they can patronize businesses. And I don't know how long the planners have been there, but whatever comes next, people have to remember, trees grow. And I think that should be built in to the planning purposes. And however it's starting, who's ever involved, I really think somebody should think about not making it something it isn't. Why do they want to make it something it isn't? I don't feel it should be. And why not think about really making it great at what it could be, which would be a pedestrian-friendly area where everybody could go and have a nice time. So I hope I didn't sound strident. I have tone issues. My husband tells me I'm looking for an elocutionist. I couldn't find any elocution teachers online. So if anybody knows of any, I'm in the market. So that was not intended as hostile, but I know.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Our next are reports from city boards and commissions. The Downtown Area Citizens Advisory Council, Ray Denner, you're up.
At last night's CCAD member Marsha Chamberlain, who's also a member of the Public Arts Commission, filled us in on the status of the public art program in Ann Arbor in relation to the recently passed public art ordinance. She outlined the art projects that are currently being developed, and we were pleased to learn that the city has now approved the hiring of a full-time public art administrator. Marsha also outlined the possibilities for a program that would be able to combine public and private funding for future art projects. And we understand that there is a resolution that before the DDA today to purchase new light poles on Main Street. The Citizens Advisory Council supports that resolution. The Citizens Advisory Council also hosts the possibility of including elements of public art as a part of this plan, which we considered. Combining city and DDA matching funds to include public art makes good sense. And those light poles provide us with an opportunity to do that. We spent most of the evening last night devoting ourselves to the issues that I raised at the last presentation that I gave to you last month. We don't want, those were expressing the fact that we don't want 413 East Huron to happen again. We supported re-examination of downtown D1 zoning and the reviewing of the design guidelines and process in a very open process, we hope, to make sure that it is possible. In the near downtown neighborhood, we're also committed to making sure that City Place on South 5th won't happen again. And we supported the recommendations of the R4C R2A Zoning Advisory Committee that met for 2 years and recommended limiting the combination of lots in order to make sure that would not happen again. All of this should be a part of an open process that allows all citizens the opportunity to provide input. We're very pleased in relationship to these things that in the case of R4C, the City Council on Monday night reestablished a Citizens Advisory Committee on changes to the R4C zoning in the near downtown neighborhoods of the city. This committee will make recommendations to R4C zoning the City Council will be weighing in order to decide if ordinances should be drafted to reflect those changes, including a limitation on combination of lots. In the case of D1 zoning review, the approval of City Council, Planning Commission Executive Committee met yesterday to begin interviews to hire a consultant to guide the D1 review process. According to what I hear, there will be 2 large public meetings as well as smaller meetings to consider possible D1 zoning changes. A public meeting in August, as well as online surveys in order that they can report to Council by the end of September. In the case of downtown design guidelines and process, a design review task force has been established. And the first of 4 scheduled meetings is scheduled for Wednesday, July 24th, 4:30 to 6 o'clock p.m. in the South Conference Room of City Hall. We expect, but we're not yet sure, that these meetings will allow public input. That's something we're struggling for. And we do our best to ensure that the guidelines and guidelines board recommendations are given more teeth. And they need to be short of making them mandatory. There are ways in which we can give them more teeth in order that, as the case of 413, developers don't just scoff at us in terms of the nature of our recommendations. Finally, all of us are urged to attend 2 important public participation meetings at the district library. That's Wednesday, July 10th, 6 o'clock to 8:30, on properties at 121, 123 East Liberty. You've probably read about this in the newspaper. And also 210 South 4th. That's that entire corner. Both developments, interestingly, are in the D1 area. You could put 180 feet on those particular sites. They're also in an historic district, but neither one of those projects is proposing anything above 5 stories. So that because we zone something, D1 doesn't necessarily mean that we have to get something that absolutely fills every inch of that particular space, takes advantage of the weakness of what currently are a design guidelines process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. The next item are communications from the DDA chair, which is me, and I would like to announce appointments to the mutually beneficial committee. City Council passed a resolution on Monday night. We thought there were going to be 3 members, but there are 4 members, so there will be 4 members in the DDA as well. They will be Bob Gunzel, Roger Hewitt, Joan Lowenstein, and Sandy Smith. Are there communications from DDA board members at this time? Roger.
Just mention that the connector study is progressing. We had a public meeting at the library several weeks ago, as well as a leadership committee meeting. Not overly well attended, but we got a lot of good input, a lot of describing where we are in the process, which is looking at route alternatives, looking at station locations, looking at mode possibilities. I think the design consultants who are running the study have recommended that we eliminate the elevated guideway system, both because of the cost, the difficulty of putting it through downtown, as well as the impact on historic districts in the downtown. So we are eliminating that as one possibility. Those elevated systems are at least 5 times more expensive than the next most expensive option. So cost being the major consideration, but also those other considerations. But still a number of options out there that they're looking at.
Thank you.
I should also mention that during the mayor's Green Fair, with the help of MDOT and AATA and SEMCOG, we were able to get a refurbished commuter rail car into downtown Ann Arbor, right down on First and William. And this is a car that will be used in the Ann Arbor to Detroit commuter train, as well as the possible future Wally from Ann Arbor up to Howell. They are used cars that have been completely refurbished, and they're open to the public for tours, and I believe over 1,000 people went through the car to take a look at it. So, one small step closer.
Very good. Thank you. Any other remarks on board? Sandy?
I'd just like to point out that our new website is up and going, thanks to Jada and her hard work with Keystone Media. And it is it's interactive. It is web-based. I've just selected all the options. You can find out where the charging stations are, where the bike stations are, where the parking structures are, and details about each parking structure, including current occupancy or vacancy rates, by touching on and pulling that up. I understand that not all the vacancy rates are quite loaded up yet and hooked up, but they are in process, so some of them are. So take a look at it, a2dda.org.
Thank you. Any other remarks? Newcomb?
Speaking of the air tubes, do we have to call it the mutually beneficial committee? History, unfortunately, is annotated and tagged these days. It would be lovely if we could give them something else.
Let me invite Sabre Briere, City Council member, to approach the podium and tell us what it is called.
And measure of the resolution.
Proposed resolution.
The actual resolution that passed called it the Joint DDA City Council Committee.
Joint DDA City Council Committee.
We don't care if it's
DDCCC.
beneficial.
Thank you so much. Okay, there's your
Let's
action.
judge us kindly.
Okay, anything else?
DDC cute.
Anyone else for comments? All right, I'd like a motion to approve the minutes for the June 5th meeting.
So moved.
So moved, second. Any corrections or changes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now we move to subcommittee reports. We start with the partnerships and economic development. Sandy or Joe?
Yeah, I'll start on the affordable housing piece. At our June meeting, we had Mary Jo Callen from Washington County, Jennifer Hall from the Housing Commission, and Julie Steiner from the Housing Alliance. We got an update on where the different moving parts all fit together, trying to find opportunities where the DDA can work with the Housing Commission, but more likely just getting an update of what's happening with all of their pieces. So we saw heard about the current state of the options, how the funding changes are happening, mostly due to the federal government and the impact that we're having right now, because that's an immediate effect, as well as ongoing reductions built into the budgets for both the state and the federal level. We talked about different areas of collaboration, but really it was kind of a session for us to learn about where we can plug in. At this point, we've agreed to continue to learn and talk with each other as far as that.
Thank you. Joe?
We had, as a second part of our meeting, Maggie Ladd and Betsy Jackson, who are both here today, joined us to talk about the South View plans for creating a business improvement zone, similar to that is already in existence on Main Street. There's been increased residential and commercial activity in this area, and that's increased use on the sidewalks and the need for something like a biz model to allow a more uniform approach, as they did on Main Street, to deal with cleanliness, visitor comfort, snow removal, that sort of thing. So I'd like to propose the resolution, which is on page 8.
Support. It's been moved and supported.
And this resolution asks for a contribution from the DDA, which is a matching amount, $59,200 to help hire a consultant and cover administrative costs for the formation of the biz and for this process. Property owners have there is support from property owners, and they are contributing $25,000. So the DDA $59,000 would make up the rest of what is needed. Now, you'll remember that when we contributed to the Main Street biz, part of our contribution was to create a template that could be used for future bizes. And that, in fact, happened, but that's not, the template isn't just a fill in the blanks. It will save them a huge amount on a lot of the legal costs and figuring out what you have to do according to the statute. But there's a lot of legwork involved, recalculating, because every biz is different, calculating what the amounts will be that need to be collected from the taxes, how to do it according to square foot and area, and those sorts of things. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done by the consultant in order to bring this to fruition. And it's hard to tell exactly how much, to quantify how much that template has saved, but being on a member of the Main Street biz board, and I can tell you that it's really a huge amount. So that's why I really think that this amount is warranted, and it is it's something that I think that we as a DDA want to promote.
Is there further discussion on this resolution? Heath?
Right, and one of the advantages, and I was on the DDA liaison when they were forming the, it's true, there was a lot of legal language that had to be done. And of course, the reason we should be supporting this, I believe, is that bids and business can do things that the DDA cannot, that fall outside of the scope of our mission, that help improve a district. And just about anyone who has formed a business happy that they did because of what Lindsay was with. I know the challenges because of where property owners reside. That was one of the advantages of Main Street, that we had so many local property owners who could understand the importance of this. So hopefully this will be a surmountable problem. I support it.
Russ?
So, I think one of our speakers was talking about this particular request. And just for clarification to her and to the general public, what we're suggesting is we're responding to a request from the local businesses. And the local businesses organize everything that's going to happen. It has nothing to do with development, the building of new buildings. It has to do with the businesses deciding that they want additional services like snow removal and cleaning and various other things that they decide to make their area more appealing. I think sometimes the general public feels that we promote, that our primary purpose is to promote new building in the downtown, when actually we don't really do very much of that. But we do try to support local businesses when they request information, or they request for support to us to help them fill a mission that we feel fits with our mission. And I think that this very much fits that particular dynamic, so I'll be supporting it as well.
Thank you, Russ. Any further discussion on this resolution?
Is
Is
there going to be a biz at the end of this, or is this supporting the study of the potential elements?
John, or Pete, whoever wants to answer. Go ahead, Pete.
Well, the answer is it's unknown. The process, one hopes that there's a biz at the end. This isn't a study to see if they want it or not, but the way, because it's essentially adds a new tax, that people who are taxed have to agree to make it happen. So what happens is all of the property owners have to, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's something like 80% of the property owners in the district. 60% have to
Based
agree
on
to it.
square footage or taxable value?
I believe it's on square footage.
It's part of the determination of this process.
Yeah, but there is a whole set of standards, and there's actually several milestones along the way that you
Yeah,
have
there's an
to.
initial vote, and then, obviously, if it didn't make that minimum, then our contribution would be pretty minimal. But there's an initial vote of the property owners to see if it goes forward, and then there's more work, and then there's another vote once they've had all the meetings and things like that.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand how it relates to what happened on Main Street, where my recollection of Main Street was they had enough ducks in a row, or at least close enough to 60% of the ducks, to saying, we want this, we need you to sponsor this, we need to set up a bank account, give us this money, and there will be a business at the end of this.
Even at that point, when we gave them the money to do that, it was unknown whether they'd get to that 60%. And so much of that has to do with one of the first things you have to do is canvass to find out who the actual property owners are, which isn't always an obvious thing.
Southview
So it
is
takes a
pretty
little
easy.
while. What's that?
Southview is pretty easy to get 60%, 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a $90,000 project. So as long as there's milestones and if we're out $5,000 for a vote,
Right.
but I don't want to be out $90,000 to look up phone numbers that are in my cell phone. That's my worry in comparison to where we were with Main Street.
Okay, Sandy?
The last whereas does talk about this first one provided a key milestone point, and it is then likely up to 59.2. So with a friendly amendment, we could say if we do a grant of up to 59.2, which would mean that if it stalls along the way, we stall too.
Is that acceptable
Yeah.
to the mover? All right, we will then add that up to 59,000. Any further comment or questions on this resolution? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. And please let us know what we can do to help
Thanks.
get it done
Pass. Thank you.
beyond this.
Next committee meeting.
Our next committee meeting is July 10th at 9 a.m.
Great. Then we move on to the Operations Committee, Roger and John Split. Start. All right.
Page 9 for the monthly budget report. Follows very much what we have been seeing. Hourly patrons are up a little bit over a year ago. Revenues are up again 13%, which taking into account the price increase relates to roughly a 5% increase in actual usage of the system. The notes on where there have been drops are significant increases are right there. One thing I think I would like to point out is that the library lane lot structure that has been open not quite a year now has revenues of this month of over $100,000. Certainly far more than we projected. Compares favorably with some of the structures, like the Forest Street structure that has been open for 20 years. Structure's clearly gotten been accepted and used by the public at a much more rapid pace than the previous structure. And I think it's an indication of the strong demand in the system. So we'll be glad to answer questions. I will point out that this will be the last monthly parking report. We're going to be going to quarterly reports. And Newman will be glad to comment on the rationale for that.
Love to. The painful convenience of data is you can often torture it to tell you whatever you want it to say. And what I've been personally more and more concerned about is the pressure we may feel to create policy based on monthly data that may indicate a trend, but we're not at this point running any sort of statistical analysis that would give us any sort of confidence or probability that anything from the tides of March or the weather or what have you may or may not indicate revenue. So at my polite and insistent poking, I propose to take the reports to a quarterly thing for our own benefit of being able to look at trends with perhaps more of an objective eye instead of trying to understand something that may or may not be telling us anything. The data will, of course, be collected daily, as it is, and will be available for anybody that wants it. And if for some reason I would suspect that it has an unintended consequence of not looking at these every month and you guys just miss them in a way that leaves a void in your monthly operations meeting, I fully suspect you guys would bring it back into a monthly report. But I think it's just out of good prudence for policy and just to give us a break from staring at data that we can get lost in without actually understanding anything. I think quarterly reports are much more appropriate, at least for this particular set of data.
I agree. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving right along.
Okay, moving right along. We have a resolution on page 10. Resolution to develop a downtown streetscape framework plan, and I would like to move this resolution for the committee.
Is there support? Moved and supported.
Okay. We've been discussing this for several months now, and I think that maybe one of the speakers had a misunderstanding that we were ready to plunge into a streetscape improvement plan on Southview, which we certainly are not looking at the moment. One of the things that I think we've identified is that when we've done streetscape improvements in the past, we looked at a single street or a few blocks of the street and, decided what it might look like. We thought it would be appropriate to step back and look at the entire downtown of how the streets are used by both cars and pedestrians, and come up with a plan on identifying what those streets should look like. Not materials, not where every lamppost or sign or bench might go, but what sort of streets they should be. Should there be parking on those streets or not parking? Should the sidewalks be wider or narrower? Where should loading zones go? Where should taxi stands go? Those sorts of things. What sort of feel do we want on a particular street? So we would identify 4 or 5 perhaps different types of streets in the downtown and identify which streets would be in which categories. We'd certainly be working very closely with city staff, who are also, I think, very interested in this idea, as well as AATA and the University of Michigan. And this will give us a blueprint and probably some priorities on where we should go with streetscapes in the future and what the general guidelines of a particular improvement in a particular street should look like as far as width and the overall dimensions and usage of those streets. So we are proposing a budget of $200,000 to be spent over the next 2 fiscal years. That would include major cost to be the cost of the consultant, but we would also, again, be doing a fair amount in-house as well as with city staff.
Discussion, Sandy?
I would hope that this may not preclude us acting on opportunities. Should they come up, for instance, the South Main property where we have new development coming in, and part of the work, part of the brownfield money will go towards the streetscape improvements. So I hope that this doesn't prevent us from acting on opportunities as they arise.
I was going to say, my understanding is that work's going to begin next summer. I'm assuming this process is not going to be done by that time, so that it shouldn't stand in the way of what's being planned there.
That's the only.
And I was going to say, and it's unlikely it would stand in the way in any case, because this is not a design guideline type of thing. It's more of a on this type of street, what should signage look like? What signs should be together? How far does a parking meter have to be from another parking meter? Those types of.
Should trees be removed that block beautiful theater marquee?
I think that actually might be more than design guideline.
Joyce Gilbert.
But in any case, it does identify those types of things, which is one reason that city staff is also so supportive of this, is because it actually simplifies the process instead of having to look at 20 different things. You look at one thing, i.e. the streetscape framework, and that will tell you, what types of things have to be considered. None of them being design guideline type of things, and I'm sure whatever is being proposed, having seen what's been proposed, I don't see that it has any issues with the streetscape.
And other than South Main, I'm not aware of any project that we are even contemplating at this point.
It wouldn't be necessarily that we are contemplating, but that somebody else is contemplating doing something on a parcel that is unknown to us, and then they ask for our engagement, as has happened in the past. And I just want to make sure that we remain nimble enough to be responsive when needed.
Well, I certainly will keep that in mind as we proceed with this.
We never stop dancing.
Yeah. Well, if nothing else, we've learned how to be nimble.
Well, that's the important part.
Yes.
Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yes.
Only made by consultants.
Now, we are on to the next resolution. Sidewalk
I was going to
repair.
say, Roger, you want me to take the next two, since they're sort of capital improvement?
Yeah.
We can take it from there.
Sure.
Resolution on page 11, establishing a project budget. I would like to move the resolution.
Second.
Second, it's been moved and seconded.
And in terms of details, I'm going to let Susan answer any questions about details on this, because she's more familiar with it than I.
Well, we conducted 2 walkthroughs in downtown. As you know, there's a sidewalk millage that the community approved. The city will be underway repairing and replacing flags and concrete where there's significant deterioration. This is a resolution establishing a project budget for those things that the sidewalk millage would not touch. For instance, we've got brick wandering away. The sidewalk millage is really only dealing with concrete. We've got tree pits that need something to help to sustain that area so it's not a trip hazard. So it could be mulch, it could be edging, it could be a grate. There's no pruning going on. All the city funds for trees are obligated just to keeping up with the replacement trees. Some of this is money for pruning, which might get to the question of being able to make sure that marquees are visible. So these are those little details that add up to a much more walkable downtown. These dollars are in your budget, but it's helpful to have a resolution so that we keep it recorded that we are making these sort of investments.
Any further discussion on this resolution? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Thank you. The next one is
On page 12, I would like to move the resolution to authorize a grant to the city for replacement of streetlights on Main Street.
support. Is there support? Yes, thank you, Jeff. There is support.
And again, would you like to?
Come on the podium, Susan.
So as we heard this spring, there has been quietly brewing a problem on Main Street. One of the first installations of pedestrian scale lighting in the DDA district was on Main Street between Huron and William. It's hard to see it on the outside, but on the inside, they are deteriorating, the rusting, the water's gotten in. Last year, 4 of them blew over with storms. They're that insecure. And so city staff have been trying to figure out a way to get them replaced. As part of the city budget process, this was an item that was discussed as discussions were going forward. It was resolved, the DDA was to assign $300,000 to this project. City staff will go through and actually spend these dollars and implement getting those lampposts in. So if we can approve this today, I can get word to city staff, we can then put forward a resolution to council. The council can then approve the remaining amount.
Any discussion?
This is coming out to.
Yes, this would be coming out of our 003 account. And one more thing to mention, we've been working in collaboration also with the Main Street Area Association representative, coordinating things like the holiday light pluggings, the banners that go up on these things. There's a lot that's involved simply just in making sure which lampposts and when. The general thought is that with council's approval, the replacements would start to go in September, and we hope to be done by the beginning of the year.
Can I propose a friendly amendment that says the DDA authorizes a grant to the city in the amount of $300,000 from our TIF capture account?
Is that friendly to all?
That's friendly to me.
Okay. We will add that to the resolution. It is from the TIF account. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes.
Back to Roger.
Now we're back to Roger, the Art Fair trolley.
The Art Fair trolley, I think you page 13. You heard from our speaker earlier, this is a $10,000 grant to help support the trolleys that circulate downtown during the 4-day art fair. There are other organizations also involved in supporting this financially, the ADA and the Visitors Intervention Bureau. So I'd like to move the resolution.
Your support? Okay, Russ supports. Any discussion on the trolley grant? Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Clang, clang.
Thank you very much. Okay. Any further committee report there, Ralph?
Yes. We are in operations always discussing parking. And we have been focusing on the high demand throughout the system, but particularly in the campus area, particularly demand for monthly parking permits. think this is probably demonstrated best by the new library lane parking structure, which has issued, I think, something over approximately 600 monthly parking permits, and we're already on a wait list for the new structure. We've been discussing on how to make the process less subjective and more objective. And we would like to, we're intent to start a pilot project in the 4th Street structure to assign permits instead of based on a first come, first served, but based on being issued to the building owners in the Southview area within the DDA district based on the square footage of those buildings. So putting in an objective measure of who gets the parking permits rather than a subjective subjective manner. Again, this would be a pilot project. There would be no contract issued. Each building owner would be contacted and would have the chance to purchase monthly permits at the going rate based on how many permits, based on that square footage, and the square footage is approximately 1 parking space for every 2,500 square feet of building area. We've gotten all the numbers and we've looked at who is using them. We would certainly grandfather in any people who currently have permits who would not be getting permits under this new system. But there are very few, I think only a couple examples where there are more permits in a building right now than the system would allow. If every building owner decided to take us up on this offer, we would issue approximately 280 permits out of the 600 we have in the 4th Street structure. One of the things we want to see is measure the level of interest in this program. Again, I emphasize it as a pilot, that no one's going to lose their parking spaces, but if people give them up, those parking spaces that are given up would then go into the system. So it's an objective way of handling it. We don't know how well it's going to work, but we felt that Southview was the area to first experiment with this because it is a separate geographic area from the rest of downtown. The size is smaller than, say, in the State Street or Main Street areas, and give us a little bit of better laboratory to experiment with. So we're going to proceed with that. We're certainly glad to answer any questions.
I have a couple. Two sort of related questions. What is the time frame of the pilot or the experiment? And then what are the evaluation standards going to be? In other words, what does success look like compared to what we have now?
Well, I think this is more informational gathering. It's not like we're actually trying to achieve a specific goal beyond encouraging development, certainly in the Southview area in this case, by giving both the current property owners and future property owners a hard number of knowing if I build this many square feet, I'm going to get this number of parking spaces. It takes away a variable for the developer and puts in a known number. So I think in the long run, does development continue on South University? We have continued economic development and continued job growth. There is no stopping point. I think at some point we're going to be evaluating it as we go along. It's difficult to know at this point what the reception is going to be and how successful we think it is. I know in the Southview area we get a large number of requests for monthly permits from students or parents of students who do not live in the DDA area and frequently do not reside in downtown wanting permits so they can drive in. And we felt that was probably one group that we didn't need to incentivize. So this is focusing on using the parking in the DDA area for property owners in the area. And then it would be up to the property owner to decide how that is divided among their tenants.
I think from, maybe this is just my personal thought on the matter, and I was initially concerned about this, especially being a student, but so much changes once you get that diploma.
You become a real person.
You just care about so much less. No, the idea being is trying to answer the question of what is fair is just going to continue to give heartache for everybody. What I hope we're going to do with this is we're going to release something a little bit more detailed that says who are the property owners, what is it, not who in terms of who owns it, but in terms of what are the criteria, and there'll be much more information than of this, which is relatively nuanced. It's not terribly complex, but it is intricate. We've seen over the past 6 to 9 months of being hit with, well, I need one more spot here, or one more spot there, and I'm bound by law with the city to do this. And the idea of a pilot is we've got this thing called permits, which, with the exception of the reserved parking spaces, are an ability for people to ideally save money and have some consistency with what their expectations are for parking. And Southview makes sense because of the geographic area. It also makes sense because of what we approved with Tice development. And to maybe perhaps get ahead of all these reactive kind of pulling it out of the sky justification of who gets what, where, and why. This is, for me personally, I think a good step in trying to address what we could call demand management with the permits. We've got big wait lists at big lots, and I don't want to get into students or student parents don't deserve them or not. It'll continually be something that we wrestle with, but the fact of the matter is we have more demand than supply, and that leaves people out in the cold. And so getting away from ideas of fairness and just getting hopefully towards something that can be sniffed as objective.
A standard.
Yeah, so that's the hope. And if we do this and everyone hates it or no one takes us up on the offer, I guess that would be information gathering of whether or not, well, maybe we shouldn't broaden this, or maybe we should bring it down. If someone comes in and says, what about my property, right? I've got whatever in there.
Less than 100 square feet.
Yeah. or why does my apartment building why does that apartment building qualify for passes, but my house that has apartments in it not qualify? That's the kind of stuff that hopefully we can get more detail about. So, because a lot of you would say, well, what, why, who, where, when? All that needs to be made public and transparent.
Certainly the parking in lieu of ordinance is one of the things that pushed us here, where we are now required to provide parking for a building if there are room in the system. Trying to how to integrate that to encourage new development at the same time of being fair to existing property owners is, one of the certainly motivations for trying to come up with this.
Objective, not fair. We're not using the word fair.
We're not using the word fair because fair is subjective. Fair depends on where you're sitting and what you're driving. Objective, at least you can say, these are if you fall within these guidelines, you get this.
Any further questions? On to downtown police office.
I guess that's me.
You're it.
There was a resolution, City Council requesting the DDA to fund downtown police officers. This is something we've actually been discussing for quite a while, certainly in some detail since last winter. There are a number of different ways that if we chose to address policing in the downtown, of approaching that, whether it's ambassadors, whether it's community service officers, whether it's beat cops, whether it's some combination of those. What are the needs? What's appropriate? So we're going to have directed staff to spend some time doing some investigation. We're going to look at some other cities that are doing similar things, Grand Rapids, I think, in particular, and try to figure out what we want to accomplish and what the best way of accomplishing that is. So we're not We're not going to make an instantaneous decision to start paying for beat cops or community service officers or ambassadors. We're going to take a reasoned approach at this and try and find out what fits best for our city, if anything.
Here's a follow-up on that. I have a resistance to paying for something that's an ongoing operational piece that is in the city, and I think that it would be great if we were to talk about funding a startup program that the city is doing. If we could talk about equipment needs, whether it's uniforms or radios or something like that, would be far more palatable. On an ongoing basis, it would be a replacement of some of those things. But I know that every hire on those has an upside cost right at the beginning. So I certainly will continue to resist anything that looks like an ongoing operational funding for individuals.
Are you advocating for RoboCop? Depreciable asset.
What's the movie, Giant Robot Steel and Godzilla Robot?
The committee will take RoboCop under consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Every committee should take RoboCop into consideration.
And the next committee meeting is,
Well, actually, it probably isn't going to be, since there's not going to be an August board meeting.
Okay.
And at least one committee member will be there.
all right, we'll let you know.
We'll have a meeting in August, but
In
not in
August.
July.
All right,
So
very
very
good.
canceled.
That is canceled. The July 24th meeting is canceled. There will be a meeting in August at some unknown time.
Great.
Everyone will be notified about it.
Thank you, Roger. Other DDA business, resolution thanking Newcomb Clark, who will be leaving the DDA. Approach the podium, Mr. Clark.
No, well, you can stay right there. This is actually one of those Arbor DDA commissions, and we often wait until the fall when officially seats have been, filled with new DDA members, but we have at least one board member who's leaving and going off to faraway Chicago. So we're going to take the chance today, not wait till September, to send a resolution of support. If you will look to your packet, page 14, we have a resolution. If you stick around after the meeting, we have a draft of it here for you to look at, but we will actually update it with actual names on it, assuming we can get enough people to say yes. But I'd like very much to speak into the record a resolution of thanks, because it's been wonderful to have you serving on board. So the resolution that's in front of you says, a resolution thanking Newcomb Clark. Whereas Newcomb Clark has served on the Ann Arbor DDA board since 2009. Whereas Newcomb Clark has participated in the development of many important projects throughout his tenure on the DDA, including the DDA's Connecting William Street Plan, the creation of the DDA Brownfield policy, as well as a host of other important policy decisions. Whereas Newcomb Clark brought great knowledge to the DDA, drawn from his many years as an experienced real estate professional, as well as valuable insight as a longtime downtown resident. Whereas Newcomb Clark also brought valuable information and knowledge to us, as well as new words from his, drawn from his time as an MBA student at the Ross School of Business. Whereas Newcomb Clark will also be remembered for his intelligence, for his principles, and his passionate commitment of time and talent in service to downtown Ann Arbor. Resolved, the Ann Arbor DDA, on behalf of the community, thanks Newcomb Clark for his great service and his many contributions during his time on the DDA board. Thank you.
I will not be supporting this. Newton should say it.
No friendly amendments?
Friendly amendment about file sorting, but
All right.
Well, wait a minute, I think that we ought to add a quote from today. It's
Okay.
about Newcomb's polite and persistent poking. And
And
I think that's classic Newcomb, and I'd like that to be part of a whereas.
Consistent poking.
Poking.
Anything about RoboCop? Okay.
We'll leave that.
But as if that weren't enough, we have one more DDA member whose tenure is coming to a close. So with your permission, I'd like to read into the record a resolution on page 15. This is a resolution thanking Lee Gunn. Whereas Lee Gahn has contributed a tremendous amount of time, energy, and dedication to the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority since joining the board in 1991, including serving as board chair in 1995, 96, and again in 2012, 13. Whereas Lee Gahn was instrumental in helping the DDA evolve into an energetic, mission-driven, and impactful organization that has enormous capacity to respond to the many diverse and complex issues facing downtown. Whereas Lee Gahn brought great commitment to solving the multi-million dollar deterioration problem in the parking structures, to creating important partnerships with Washtenaw County, the city, and nonprofit agencies to foster a diversity of downtown housing options, and to pursue such transformative projects as the two-way traffic transition in the State Street area, the Fifth and Division Improvement Project, and the construction of the Library Lane parking structure. Whereas Lee Gahn's strength of character, decisiveness, and willingness to do the work necessary to overcome challenges made her an invaluable board leader and invaluable board member. Whereas Lee Gahn's remarkable passion for the DDA and its work will be sorely missed, and her commitment to the downtown and community is an inspiration to all of us who've had the good fortune to work beside her. Resolved, the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority extends its great thanks and best wishes to Lee Gahn for her abundant contributions to the downtown and indeed to the community as a whole for her work on the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority Board. Thank you.
I get to make a speech. The one thing that Susan left out, that was to me the most important accomplishment of my being on the DDA, was I was chair when we hired Susan Power. And she has been a remarkable and wonderful executive director, and I want to take a little credit for that. I will miss you all. I have loved being on the DDA. I will obviously keep very much track of you and see how you're doing, and I appreciate this very much. Thank you. Is there other audience participation at this time?
Yes, me again. As long as I'm here, I wanted to just make a few remarks about parking. I also wanted to clarify, I see the misunderstanding. I was not responding to the article today. I think the Biz thing is fabulous. It reminded me of the article that I responded to a few weeks ago about the whole concept. So, and I'm also not, I'm not anti-development. I actually was in favor of the Huron division project. So just to clarify, it was the details in that article. Okay, parking, and I think these comments hopefully may even mitigate some of the complaints. Because I have no problems with the cost or the availability of parking in the city. I lived in Boston for 22 years, and it cracks me up when people say there's no place to park or it's expensive. I have no complaints about that. But I do have some comments about the system and the new machines. Okay, first of all, the new machines I find very cumbersome to use, and I know I'm not the only one just from talking friends, but you have to wait for a screen to come up. Then you have to put the screen. Then it asks you what you want to do. Then you have to tell them, and then you put in your number. And I know I'm not the only one who's had to go back and look at the number, because I hope I'm not. There's a lot to do. And if you're waiting and there's somebody there, I mean, it'd be nice if you could just put in the number or something. Also, I have had so many coins and credit cards so many times rejected from those machines. And I also think there's a mean-spiritedness about them, because they won't tell you how much time you get for your money. You put your money in and they show you the time it ends. But if I'm not mistaken, I think people think like, you put in a nickel, if it's 3 minutes, that's fine. But it's easier to see how many minutes you're going to get. And also the whole thing about you can't use the leftover time. In Detroit, they have similar things. But you get there and it shows you how much time is left. So I think a lot of the ill will is not necessarily about the money or the availability, but it just, these little things are kind of, I think, like I said, mean-spirited. The other issue is the bags over the parking meters. And as both a business owner, we talked about this a few years ago, and someone who comes to Ann Arbor a lot, I mean, I live in Ann Arbor, but I went to talk to the mayor about this, because some of them, many of them are in construction zones, and you know that no one's going to be using them at night. And he actually told me, you can, if they're, certain specs, but I don't remember, and no one on Lyft ever trusts me to say, to feel confident parking there. For the mayor's green fare, they say you can park free until 2 o'clock. So on North Fork, like the African American Festival, which is on Saturday and Sunday, or just Saturday, I don't remember, they bag the meters Friday morning. So nobody, no customers can park on that street Friday, all day Friday, and nothing's happening. So if there could be like free parking till 2 or whatever, and also if the ones in construction zones, the ones that you can park at night and not be ticketed, if they could have some kind of notice that, yeah, it's okay to park here, you won't be ticketed. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now, we move right back into our annual meeting, so we need to have the roll call again, Susan.
All right. Newton Park.
Here.
Russ Collins.
Here.
Bob Gunzel.
Here.
Lee Gunn.
Here.
Roger Hewitt.
Here.
John Heapja. Joe Lowenstein. Here. John Moat. Nader Nassif. Keith Orr.
Here.
Sandy Smith. Here. John Split.
Here.
We have a forum.
Great. New business is to nominate and elect DDA board members for 2013 and 14. I have a nomination for treasurer.
Excuse me, you said board members, you meant officers.
Officers, thank you very much. Officers. For treasurer, do you have a nomination?
Do I have a nomination? How about Roger Hewitt?
Are there any further nominations for
I
treasurer?
would move a unanimous ballot.
Unanimous ballot has been moved. All in favor, say aye. Roger is willing to be treasurer for another year. We appreciate that. Is there a nomination for secretary?
I nominate Keith Orr.
Any further nominations?
I move a unanimous ballot.
Hey, unanimous ballot has been moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Vice chairperson. Is there a nomination for vice chairperson?
I'll nominate John Moat.
John Moat has been nominated. Is there another nomination for this position?
Move a unanimous ballot.
All in favor of unanimous ballot for John Moat, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And for chairperson, is there a nomination?
I
John.
would like to move Sandy Smith.
Any further nominations for chairperson?
And I would move the unanimous ballot.
Thank you. There's been a unanimous ballot moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And at this point, Sandy is the new chair. Gavel is yours, and they finish the agenda.
Mighty fine kabuki.
So it's at this moment that I get to talk on better and say thank you very much for your leadership and your mentorship. And we're going to miss you. Thank you very much.
Can we get an amen?
Yeah. I also have DDA committees for the upcoming year. Operations. Roger Hewitt, Keith Orr, John Split as sharing the duties of committee chairs. Correct? And including committee members, Russ Collins, Bob Gunzel, Roger Hewitt, John Heapja, Joe Lowenstein, John Moat, Nader Nassif, Keith Orr, Sandy Smith, and John Split, which I believe is the remaining committee members.
The rest of us.
Yes.
Everyone not
Very good.
the board, right?
Yeah. Partnerships and Economic Development Committee I have down as current chairs Joan and Sandy Smith. Is that acceptable, or is there any changes afoot?
Sounds good to me.
With the remaining committee members being Russ Collins, Bob Gunzel, Roger Hewitt, John Heapja, Joe Lowenstein, John Moat, Nader Nassif, Keith Orr, Sandy Smith, and John Split. Also joining us in the partnership, which may change subject to appointments, Tony Darazinski for the Planning Commission, Marty Teal and Jane Lum from City Council, and Charles Griffith from the AATA, also reflective of any upcoming elections. Executive Committee remains the DDA officers and past previous DDA chair. And staff, thank you to the board and to the outgoing DDA chair.
So this is always fun, because this is a chance for us to do a few things, which is to say thank you, and then also to let you know that we spent a lot of time talking about you behind your back. So this year, as a thank you to our outgoing chairperson, we wanted you to know that you will be living on in downtown in your own special way. So you will be getting, for your daily gift, at 4th and Washington, I should get back to the podium.
Oh my goodness.
At 4th and Washington, there will be Lee's Place, a little ferry door that will be a place for us to bring people as they come downtown, because after all, it's been a magical time having Lee here. And beside you, in your own backyard, you have an opportunity to have your own ferry door, with the idea that the ferries can teleport between your house and downtown at any point. They could be here. So we wanted you to know that we've been very pleased to have you as our chair. You've just been wonderful.
This is a fabulous quote.
Also, as a gift, we have a quote. Maybe you want to read it out loud, Madam Chair. It seems to speak about how I think your worldview, maybe.
Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. From Dr. Seuss and the Cat in the Hat.
There you
It's
go.
wonderful.
Thank you so much
you.
for an extraordinary year as our chair. You've certainly put in time and put in so much of your heart to downtown. And on behalf of the staff, we want to thank you for your time and effort this year. Thank you.
This is just amazing. Thank you so much.
Do they have to pay to park there?
Of course.
But yes, everybody has to pay to park.
Everyone seeking nomination is going to have to leave tribute at the doorstep.
Very good. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support?
Support.
All in favor?
We're
I need this.
You can keep it. Hard to imagine.
I actually, yes, absolutely. Someone, I have to be every second. Actually, because looking for an outstanding kind of low